All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, everybody. You know we're here. You know it. It's our big live show. We're live across YouTube right now. Yeah, the tube that is you. I'm wearing my credibility glasses. You may not recognize me with them on. I'm Mark. Kim is with us. Just made it in time. Wow.
How are you?
Skin of my teeth.
She really does like to cut it close. And you've got, I don't know what is, something's feeding back, but fabulous producer
Albert, thank you.
Is here. We've got quite the show. We've got a lot of people coming through today, and I'll review a little bit of what's happening as we continue some breaking news with the A's announcing a move. We'll get to that. Also breaking news with SpaceX and the launch that, launched, but then it was, well, I guess this rocket didn't decouple. Is that what it's called?
Unconscious decoupling?
Yeah, it didn't decouple.
You do not know what you are talking about.
You're right about that anyway. So there's a lot going on this morning. We'll get you caught up. We do have a major story out of Southern California, and Golden Mike award-winning journalist Steve Gregory is going to be with us in just a couple of minutes to tell us about that. It's Tech Thursday. Jefferson Graham will join. That'll be in the next half hour. And then, of course, David Katz, the brilliant legal ninja, joins us just after 11 o'clock. Ann Herring, first into the crew with a super sticker. What about that? Come on.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Ann Herring. We're crowdfunded, so we thank you for anything you throw in the virtual tip jar. If you're watching in replay, there's a little heart with a $sign. You can click that and leave us something that way, too. It's really terrific. The big way that we're sustained, honestly, is Patreon and PayPal. But it's so cool that you guys click and leave us something in the way of a super sticker or super chat, and I'll always read the super chat if you leave one. I do want to say happy 420, baby.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Yeah, you know. There is, Jim Slayton says it, where are my weed smokers at? There is, I'm told, Albert, you can tell me if this is true. There is a, yeah, baby. There is a special on 420. There's a special Get Mark merch offer. Isn't there, Albert? Am I right about this?
Yep, you're right. And I have it right here.
So if you go to getmarkmerch.com, where you normally get our merch, you see 3 items there. $4.20. Get it? Off of each stash item, man. It's a...
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
It's a really good idea. Now, that is a pot holder there that you're seeing pictured, but it's
what?
No, it's not that kind of pot. It's for a hot... But you could put pot in there, I suppose.
Yeah, you could put your hand... If you could put your hand in there, you could put you could stash,
Yeah, and stash it all.
It'll be an odd item just take around with you, but you can do it.
Yeah, it's not really very well concealed. I mean, you have to pull a pot holder out every time you want to get to your pot. But Where My Weed Smoker's At is one of our, if not most popular mugs. It is certainly.
Where my weed smokers at?
It may be the most popular, and of course the stash, which is the what is that? What is that called? It's a crossbody.
The crossbody bag.
The crossbody bag, which has
a little.
It has a secret compartment in it. It really does have a secret compartment in it. So you get an automatic discount code applied at checkout at Happy 420. So you put that in, and that's your automatic discount. So go to getmarkmerch.com. You'll enjoy $4.20 off each stash item. Again, the discount code is HAPPY420. Shop at getmarkmerch.com. The sale ends 4/23/23, so they give you a few days, and you know why that is, because sometimes it's hard to get out of the chair when you're getting your 420.
Stay at home and get baked.
Yeah, you're getting your 420 on. Sometimes it's hard to, make a plan. Yeah, so they're going to continue it for a couple of days. Mark Thompson Show Fanny Pack Sling Cross Body Bag being featured now on the site. So you can figure out how it might work. Anyway, that's a great offer. They did that on their own. That's so clever. I just got the word that's happening. So super, super cool. Thanks for being here. We've got a lot to do. Albert, I'm going to get to you in a second, Albert, because I really do want an update on a couple of things sports related, and you are the commissioner of sports on this show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I want to ask you what's happening with the A's, first of all. Looks like they're going to go to Las Vegas. Is that right?
Yeah, they signed a binding agreement and to purchase a land in Las Vegas to obviously move the team.
Now, that's got to be an indoor stadium, right? Because you can't play in the summer in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that would be something else.
It would be bad enough for the players, but imagine even for the fans sitting in
just sitting
111 degrees or whatever it is.
Yeah, you're just like sitting in an oven, basically.
The A's are saying the process to build a ballpark in Oakland has made little forward progress for some time.
Yeah, it seems like Oakland has had a lot on their plate, and it's been a weird war between the A's and Oakland as a city. They're just trying to find locations. Howard Terminal. They even threatened to go to San Jose because there's ties to San Jose with the owner. But I think just like the Raiders, Oakland's had two professional teams, and to zero. It's
interesting because the fan base really, I always felt, was there to support a team. The Raiders had a very strong fan base, for example. The A's had a strong fan base. I don't know.
Yeah, they had a really good team too. They had a couple runs, unfortunately ending in the wild card, and then they just traded literally everyone. And it's funny because I just saw that the A's fans planned on doing a reverse boycott of the team by all showing up. So they planned for the June 13th game against the Rays to sell out the park, and it had a lot of traction. Over 250,000 people were interested in doing it. So, I don't know if the reverse boycott's going to go. It's not going to make a difference, but the A's do plan on opening and starting their new season in 2027 in Las Vegas.
The plans are finalized, and I guess they're trying to work out some kind of public-private partnership to fund the stadium.
Yeah, the Major League Baseball is actually backing this move. So, or at least those are what the rumors are saying.
That plan to build a ballpark near Howard Terminal, or there at Howard Terminal, that, to be fair to them, did seem to have run aground, right? It was a back and forth that's been going on for years now, right?
Years, and even they finally came up with the sketches years late. It looked great, but it was like it seemed like it just wasn't going to happen. So the A's have a lease to play in the Coliseum until 2024, and we'll see what they do for those next 3 years.
Vegas is stockpiling sports franchises.
They have a WNBA team. They have a hockey team. They have a football team. Now they're going to get a baseball team. So
10 years ago, they had nothing, right? I think
it's weird, and it's because we're seeing a lot more sports gambling become prevalent, and obviously for Station X, but even beyond that, just in normal society, and you see it even on sports like SportsCenter. You never used to see that stuff, so it's kind of changing the sports as we see it.
I also want to ask you about
the Mark Thompson Show.
You know what I want to ask you about? The Dubs! Come on, commish! They're down 2-0, right?
Down 2-0. No Draymond. We're playing at home, though, so we're like, historically this season we play well at home.
Yeah, but I mean, they've really.
It's
I
funny,
mean,
I was
you
talking
take
to my dad. My dad's a huge Warriors fan, and he was
Yeah.
saying how he wants us to win, so Draymond gets less money in the offseason because he's scheduled to become a free agent, and if we could win without him here in the playoffs, that'll be a good bargaining.
Your
tool,
dad's
so.
playing the long game on Draymond. Yeah. I'd seen something about the fact that tonight's game is going to be officiated by a whistle-happy crew. I was reading about that. So they've actually handicapped this crew as calling a lot of fouls. How do you in the commissioner's office handicap that? Go ahead.
Yeah, so the crew is historic. Like they are whistle happy, and it seems like there's a prominent NBA player who has a podcast. He appears on ESPN, JJ Redick. He even said about Game 2 and Game 1 that the Kings have been favored just with all the calls that have been happening. Whether that's intentional or not, or that's just being home court advantage, I don't know. But it's been the Warriors versus the refs versus the Kings this whole series. So. And the Warriors against themselves because we tend to shoot ourselves in the foot more than once throughout the game.
It's a tough spot. I mean, and it's tough to repeat. It's a long season, long postseason. We've talked about it before. The postseason is crazy. It's like its own season. And so to demand this of what is now sort of an aging team, it's going to be tough. I know you're rooting for the Dubs, but how do you see the playoffs? Is it the Nuggets? Who do you see who's advancing?
I love this. I love this about the playoffs this year. It's really a toss-up. The Boston's look really good, but they're playing against a terrible Hawks team. Like that team has no chance. Again, and then you said the Nuggets. The Nuggets are playing against an awful Timberwolves team. So I want to see both of those teams actually challenged in the next round.
It's reminiscent of March Madness a little bit, isn't it? I mean, the early rounds can be deceiving. Yeah.
It has been fun to watch, though. I'm also watching the NHL playoffs. Hockey is not popular here, but NHL playoffs has been really good as well. So it's playoff season, and it's exciting. You know, the A's have
busy
3
in
wins.
the commissioner's
The Giants
office.
Can't win either,
Yeah.
so I'm not watching baseball right now.
Yeah, very busy in the commissioner's office. William Lundgren says, I remember those great days in the 70s when the A's were in the series. Yes, in the 80s.
Well, in the 80s, too.
The Bash Brothers,
That was
right?
when that ballpark was beautiful before Mount Davis was built. That was a very beautiful stadium, and they had a lot of winning teams there. A lot of history in that stadium, unfortunately, that was ruined, and it's really sad. And I guess the Giants have won the Bay Bridge series, like for the long run here.
Yeah, the other team died off, so I guess you guys
literally
win.
left
That's
town.
right.
So,
I did. Sorry, go ahead.
Japan writes E40 going to be at the game. What was the thing with E40?
I was a huge fan, right? And he
was
got into a.
He's a huge fan. He was there for game 1, and there was I guess there was heckling going on. He was sitting front row. And they ultimately said yesterday that it was a miscommunication between security and the fans and the Kings organization because obviously not the best to press. It definitely took traction on Twitter and a lot of people coming to E40's defense, which whether he was in the right or the wrong doesn't matter. It was just bad press against the Kings. So the Kings had to put out that fire.
They had to, yeah. It was how would you handle this type situation? When we could try just ignoring it, sir.
How would you handle this?
Right.
We could try ignoring it,
No,
sir.
ignoring it wasn't working. So yeah, I just have one thing to relate about the A's as they leave the Bay Area for Vegas, and it's that story. Remember, I think I've told you this before, maybe not. When the A's with the Bash Brothers were at their height, I did a live remote for Cron out there. He was a weather guy on Cron. We used to do a lot of weather remotes. And so you do a thing, you go out there batting practice ahead of time, and then, we think we did a 5 o'clock show, a 6 o'clock show, And I'm standing there as they all come out for batting practice. Some are in the batter's box at that moment. And I'm wearing my A's jacket. I wasn't particularly an A's fan, as you know, I'm a Giants fan. But I'm rooting for the local guys to do well. And I had been just on a thing that had kind of gotten some profile. I think they were doing a commercial campaign around me or something. Neighborhood weather was my thing, and I think they were doing something. So I was kind of feeling like my profile was growing in the community, like just, your media profile. So I'm standing there watching something in the dugout, as I recall, and somebody in the front row yells, "Mark, how are you doing?" And I wave back, and they wave at me. And then somebody else yells, "Mark, Mark." And I wave. And then a few more people yell, "Mark." And it was pretty incredible. And I thought, man, this is a profile that I knew was growing, but clearly it's much bigger than I'd thought. And I wave again. And then more people are yelling Mark. And I'm thinking, well, they see me waving to the other people. They hear the other people waving Mark and yelling Mark, and they all realize Mark Thompson's there. So I'm waving.
Don't you know who I am?
And then I had to, that was it. I had a don't you know who I am moment. You know what I mean?
Do you know who I am?
Yes.
I'm kind of a big deal.
I turn around to watch batting practice again, and who is standing right behind me but Mark McGwire, everybody. Yes, the home run. That's exactly who they were saying hello to. No one recognized me. They were saying hi to Mark McGwire.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We'll get to the SpaceX launch in Kim's news. It was to have been a test launch, obviously. 33 engines that would push this, what's being called world's most powerful rocket toward space for the first time. Exploded a few minutes into this planned 90-minute trip. But all of that, as I say, in Kim's news. Much to do today, and I wanted to bring someone on who is a brilliant journalist, as I was telling you before, award-winning journalist. And the thing about Steve is he's covering something that really on its face strikes me as bizarre and unusual. Put it together for a Golden Mike winner. He has so many Golden Mikes. He's stepping over Golden Mikes at his house on his way to pick up other Golden Mikes. Steve Gregory, everyone. I don't mean to emphasize the awards, but I'm just saying it's pretty cool that you are an award-winning journalist, sir. Welcome to the Mark Thompson Show, Steve.
Marco, always good to see you, pal.
I think you've been here before. Am I right, Steve?
Yeah, we were sort of highlighting my show Unsolved, which airs on Saturday nights.
That's right. You were here. That's right. You were here for a mystery. In fact, Courtney was very anxious to have you on because you are such an authority. I remember that now. This story that you have is out of Southern California, and it is bizarre, I think. Tell everyone what's happening with the Juvenile Hall there and how this entire situation has been turned on its side.
Well, Mark, it's funny because this situation is actually happening nationwide in some form or another. And that's this sort of reformist movement that is creeping into the juvenile detention system. And for people that may not understand, typically county probation departments are charged with maintaining discipline and maintaining enforcement of the juvenile halls within a specific county. In Los Angeles, one of the largest counties in the country, has one of the largest, incarcerated populations in adult jails and whatnot. But also it has a high number of juvenile incarcerated young people. And what we're finding out is because of lax policies on a local level, new prison reform and realignment plans on a state level, these kids now have become more empowered and they're getting more brazen. And these officers are getting the brunt of this violent outbursts and violent behavior inside these detention centers. Now, detention officers in the juvenile system do not carry sidearms. And that's by design for obvious reasons. But they typically have a baton maybe, or a capsicum spray, which is OC spray, and pepper spray. And so they have those tools, but because of reform movements now, they want to take that away from all of these probation officers. And here in Los Angeles County, that's a big problem because of prison realignment going on a state level. A lot of the criminals, very hardened criminals, are being released from state custody, and the county probation system has to absorb them. So now you've got 19, 20, up to 25-year-olds that have been in prison for a couple of years, blending in now with kids as young as 14 years old, and it's causing a big ruckus.
Wow. Wow. That's very interesting. So when you, just to unpack that, to use the overused term a little bit, when you say the lax rules, you mentioned lax. How does that manifest? What are some of those things that you're talking about in that general way?
And I can only speak for LA County in that particular statement, because we're talking about the district attorney for Los Angeles County. He came into the office with a very, very reformist ideology. He wanted to redo the justice system. He wants to completely gut and eradicate the current system of enforcement and incarceration in favor of these care first movements. And this is the sort of hands-off approach. The hugs approach, as some people have called it, the hugs and, tickle and hugs approach, as opposed to the lock them in cages approach. So that was always his sort of agenda from the beginning. As such, when he got into office the day of inauguration, he sent out a list of directives to all of his new staff, his brand new staff of prosecutors, in which he said, we will not prosecute kids as adults, regardless of the crime. So the most heinous of all, murder, those kids are not being charged in adult court. And in California, even if you commit a murder as a kid, you're released at 25 years old anyway. So it doesn't really matter in California. But in Los Angeles County, kids are not even being punished for murder or for the heinous crimes as adults because of these directives. Also, there's in the body of the directives is a mandate that no young person that's in custody in Los Angeles County will ever be charged again with additional crimes while in the custody of the county. So when you've got photos like, let's look at some vandalism here. I see.
So when they do stuff in the system like that, what you're talking about, that picture you're holding up. So when they do this in juvenile hall, you're saying there are no repercussions because they can't be brought up on additional charges,
including when they slice open the leg of an officer, or slice the jowls of an officer when they slice open. I mean, that was a very, very deep cut. When they do things like this, they're not punished. When they bring in shivs or they make shivs inside of the detention centers. I mean, this is like San Quentin stuff here.
Yeah.
And so when they do all of this stuff, there's no repercussions. There's no accountability for them in LA County. Now, I've not surveyed counties around the country, so I can't speak to them, but that's what I meant by lax policies.
Wow. I mean, that's extraordinary. And you're saying essentially that population of juvenile offenders is being commingled now with those who are of an older age. So you get, if you will, more hardened. I don't know. I mean, it seems like the juveniles are pretty hardened already. I mean, they come from pretty tough backgrounds often. And if they're capable of producing that sort of mayhem, but anyway, you're saying that older population is now commingled and it could make for an even tougher situation.
Right. And the way it was explained to me, because I did a very, very lengthy interview with a source that reached out, and we sat and talked, and the way they described it was that at 14 years old, which is the average age they come into the juvenile justice system, at 14 years old, I'm already getting them. These are his words. I'm already getting them with 14 years of bad parenting, 14 years of exposure to gang culture, 14 years of possible poverty, and 14 years of bad education. So when I get them at 14 years old, they're already conditioned with this sort of bad lifestyle. And when things go wrong and things go south in the custody of the probation department, they blame the probation officers. Well, the probation officers are saying, well, listen, these programs that were designed to extract them from this gang culture and get them into more of a better lifestyle, a better life for themselves, have all been defunded by the county. So the county is sort of creating its own mess. But when we find out, when we dig a little deeper, the officers are saying, well, that the reason that they're sort of eradicating or gutting that system, it's in favor of this new care first approach, which is really hands off. So instead of putting them in these dormitory style detention centers, they would literally go back to their homes and back into the communities where they offended. As long as they met with a counselor every so often and went to a couple after school activities, then they're going to be fine. Wow.
You realize how these early intervention programs are critical. It just,
wow.
The and evolution of it.
Let's not ignore parenting here and all of this.
Right. No, exactly. Right. But I do think that many of those programs that can exist on playgrounds, around community centers, they can be a lifeline to those who may not have parents who are particularly well connected. You know, these after school programs, all the rest, I don't know. That's a bigger question, but I mean, it feels very relevant given some of what you're talking about. What is going to be done? So these are law enforcement officers that you showed us pictures of who've been, you know, worked over at the hands of a juvenile population. Well, what's the cure right now for that? How are they, what are they going to do?
There's no cure right now because they're also down about 2,000 officers over the last few years. They used to be at a peak of 6,000 officers just about 4 or 5 years ago, and now they're down to 2,000 because the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles County will not release a hiring freeze because, again, they're trying to just squeeze this whole program out, choke it out in favor of this new Care First model, which, by the way, has lineage to other nonprofits, which will stand to gain financially from this. And that's sort of the bigger picture here, is that this whole channeling of the money that's supposed to go to kids and the safety of the kids and the safety of the adults, and it's actually being channeled into nonprofits for profit.
If it doesn't make sense, it's usually about money. Steve, thanks so much for taking a few minutes and joining us today. Always love it when you're on the show.
Pleasure, pal.
Steve Gregory, everybody. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
A lot of problems when it comes to, you know, what to do with so many of these lives that seem to have gone sideways, you know. But there's a big series of Supreme Court decisions that may come down, not the least of which is on the abortion pill that I've talked at length about here, and we'll talk at length about it a bit, along with some other cases that are building up, and the Dominion voting settlement. All of that will be coming up in the 11 o'clock hour with David Katz. As I look ahead in my hymnal, I'm looking forward to that. By the way, remember I told you the story yesterday about the Postal Service employee who didn't want to work Sundays because they're devout Christians, and they felt that Sunday's the Lord's Day, right?
Yeah.
And they were being accommodated for a time at the office. They were actually moving schedules around to accommodate this person, but, you know, eventually the point was pressed, and now it's ended up in court, and now it's at the Supreme Court. So the surprising thing to me, and I'll mention this to Katz, but I mentioned it to you because I did the story just the other day. The surprising thing is that these devout Christian justices, I'm talking about specifically Amy Coney Barrett, you know, she's not only a devout Christian, but she is part of that group, which is, I think it's called the, what the hell is it called? It's a Roman Catholic.
Yeah, she's a Catholic group, right? Some special.
Yeah, she's Roman Catholic, but it's like even a special sect of Roman Catholicism. But anyway, so a lot of her life is informed by that. Both she and Brett Kavanaugh,
people of praise,
raised questions about, is this an undue burden to put on a business to accommodate religious demands? That's a very interesting take. And in a way, it reminds you, and that's, again, the judgment hasn't been handed down. They haven't made a ruling. But this is just in argument. It reminds you that this court is more than anything, they're one thing. They're business friendly. If you are a big corporate interest and you have a case before the Supreme Court, you have an overwhelming chance of a ruling in your favor. That's what I've talked about in the Supreme Court all along. And these justices, for all the Roe v. Wade stuff, they are fundamentally, if you'll pardon the use of that word, fundamentally allegiant to corporate interests and business interests. So in a way, hearing them say, well, doesn't that put an undue burden on the employer? In a way, they're singing right on tune for what this court is really all about. But the abortion pill, as you know, they've put off judgment. It was to have been handed down yesterday. They put off judgment on that until they've given themselves until end of day Friday. So we'll see what happens there. Smash the like button like a boss when we come back.
With your iron rod.
Yes, smash it with your iron rod. I'll remind you, it is 4:20. And those of you who
Where are my weed smokers
you're
at?
already. I got a letter last night. It was an email, I think. Was it from you, Kim? About the.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
It was about itty bitty bit of weed, right?
Oh, yeah. We had a listener write in, and I guess she and her husband, Enid and her husband have been trying to figure out, what does it say? What are they saying?
Oh,
It's an itty bitty bit of weed.
it's an itty bitty bit of weed. It's an itty bitty bit of weed. Isn't that what they're saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's an itty bitty bit of weed.
Yeah, I think that's it.
They thought it was anybody bit of weed, which doesn't make sense.
No, but that wouldn't necessarily preclude it from being used. Yeah, but it's
No.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's itty bitty bit of weed. All right, smash the like button.
With your iron rod.
The great Jefferson Graham awaits us here on Mark Thompson Show. Yeah.
More. It's the planet stupid.
No, it's not the
No.
planet stupid.
Whoever
no,
is producing this thing.
You got the stupid.
Mark
You got the
Thompson
stupid
Show.
part right. Kim's news now.
Lord. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and let us begin with legislation pending at the Capitol. A trans sports-related bill approved by the Republican-controlled House is likely to get killed in the Democratic-controlled Senate. The House passed a bill today that bans transgender athletes from participating in women's and girls' sports. Democrats argue that ban is discriminatory. As Mark was mentioning, SpaceX. Yeah, the test launch this morning resulted in what's called, quote, an unscheduled disassembly. The unmanned Starship exploded just 4 minutes after its launch. Thank goodness.
Talk
it's
about
unmanned.
a euphemism.
Yeah.
My God.
The
Right.
unscheduled disassembly. The
Unscheduled disassembly, yes.
The Starship is designed to transport crew and cargo to the moon, to Mars, and beyond. Not anymore, it's not. No arrests have been made after a huge protest in Ohio. This happened overnight, early this morning. Last night, the Ohio crowd turned violent. They gathered in Akron to protest the grand jury's decision not to press charges against any of the officers involved in the shooting death of Jayland Walker last June. You can see the man here. Police say the march began peacefully, but protesters began throwing rocks and bottles at officers who then responded with pepper spray. So, doesn't look very pretty there in Akron, Ohio. Marjorie, back at it again.
Oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, Marjorie.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is being reprimanded by her own party. The outspoken Republican from Georgia got into some heated exchanges during a Homeland Security hearing this week with Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
I watched it. It was pretty brutal. You have it? It's pretty brutal.
Well, I just have a little bit of sound.
No, I reclaim my time. You're a liar.
Right.
No, I reclaim my time. You're a liar.
They
You're a
don't
liar.
No,
they don't
I reclaim
let
my
you.
time. You're a liar.
That's a good drop. So thank you for that. And
You're welcome.
I must say that she was way out of bounds. I watched a bit of it. She was really way out of bounds.
I watched her being extraordinarily rude to Congressman Eric Swalwell from California.
Oh, that was out of bounds.
Their envy, wonton killing. I don't know what a wonton killing is. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
I led one. That was what you.
She accused Swalwell of having a sexual relationship with a Chinese spy. She did it in a committee on the record. Republican chair of the Homeland Security Committee, Mark Green of Tennessee, said the comment about Mayorkas violated House rules and they prohibited her from speaking any further. They tried to do it, at least Congressman Swalwell tried to do it as well. He said, I want that stricken from the record, and I want her not to be able to speak. And they said, nope, we can't strike it from the record, and carry on, ma'am. Yeah. So once she started thrashing Mayorkas, then they said, okay, you're done. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you said, called him a liar, that doesn't,
one more time.
Yeah,
no, I reclaim my time. You're a liar.
You can't reclaim your time.
You're a liar.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Marjorie. And also, as Mark was mentioning, the Oakland A's appear to be following the Oakland Raiders to Las Vegas. The A's are purchasing land in the city. They plan to build a major league ballpark near the Las Vegas Strip. The commissioner of baseball says the league supports the team's move to Vegas, which would likely happen by 2027. Here's my question. What if they just, I mean, they say it's binding. What if they're just building a summer, what is it? Summer play area, a training area? No? Could that be?
I don't know what you mean, but you mean just a workout? What do you mean? What if
Yeah,
they are?
they always go to a different city, a different state to do their training sometimes.
Yeah,
Maybe
so what?
the Giants go to Arizona. I don't know.
Oh, you're saying somehow this isn't them actually moving. This is just a training facility that's being erected in Las Vegas.
I'm trying to be on the side of fans here. I'm looking for any other reason. No,
I don't think that.
You do not know what you are talking
Yeah,
about.
I think on this one you may not.
I was trying.
don't get it, do you?
Yeah,
You don't.
Yeah, the whole team's getting up. They're packing up everything. They're putting it in buses. They built another stadium in another city. But you think that could be just a practice place that they're working on the?
You just
in Las Vegas.
don't get it, do you?
Yeah, no, right.
You don't.
They're gone. They're
Couple
leaving.
slot machines
They're
in
out.
there. No,
The A's, they're gone.
that's it.
God.
Why are you
Only in
yelling?
Oakland. So what's left in Oakland?
Well,
You get
it's sad
nothing.
because the Dubs came across the bridge.
Yep. There's nothing left.
Well, there's Jack London Square.
There's no Raiders. There's no A's. There's no
No.
Warriors.
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, look, it was always a luxury, I think, on some level that you had a couple of professional sports franchises there, the Raiders and the A's. I mean, really, it is. It's because the Bay Area was, it's a 2 baseball town, 2 football town. I mean, that's a lot to ask a fan base to support. Now, the fan base is drawing from all over Northern and Central California, but still. I mean, you could say that the Niners, the San Francisco doesn't have a team. The Niners don't play in San Francisco. You know what I mean? So don't get too, I think, look, this is the rationale I'll provide. Don't get too hung up on the fact that the Dubs don't play in Oakland anymore. I think it's harder for A's fans to come over and root for the Giants. I mean, they're American League fans, and that might be a tougher one for them. But I think that we're lucky. You've got really great franchises in the Bay Area. Maybe I don't know how great the hockey team is, but I don't know. Albert, you know more about that than I do.
Well, sayonara.
Sayonara sucker. I'm sorry. I think it's not.
Good day, sir.
Right.
It's not a training facility. No, it's not that.
I think they're leaving.
Sayonara, sucker.
Sorry.
That's it. And lastly, the defense team for actor Jonathan Major says they have submitted irrefutable evidence that claims of abuse are false. His attorneys added they are confident the actor will be exonerated. Majors was arrested last month on assault and harassment charges after a domestic dispute.
Exonerated is a dang word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This report is sponsored by you. That is the way it is here on the Mark Thompson Show. The show is crowdfunded. Thank you for being part of the Mark Thompson Show community, participating in your chat, our chat, spending time with us. We appreciate it. If you would like to support the show financially, please consider becoming a Patreon member. We also have PayPal, and you can find both of those links and so much more at themarkthompsonshow.com. I'm Kim McAllister.
So much more there, though, Kim. I mean, there really is. Those are the links to PayPal and Patreon.
Right.
That's so much more when you say and so much more.
You can find a link to the merchandise, which now
is there? That's true.
Today.
There's a link to the merchandise. You're right.
You can find a link to the show. Sometimes people have trouble navigating YouTube. You can find a link to the show. You can find a link to the podcast.
Yeah.
You just don't get it.
I don't. I think I don't get it. I think you're right. I didn't get it.
So much more is actually correct.
Okay. Well, I stand.
Sir.
I stand corrected as a great American.
I stand corrected.
I misspoke. Really, is what
I misspoke.
Trying to correct me on the website. I'm telling you, people. I'm Kim
They had to
McAllister.
close down an entire.
You're Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show.
Silence him.
On the Mark Thompson Show.
Stop it. Okay.
I was going to wait till he paused and then busted all
Go
out.
ahead.
I'm Kim McAllister, and this is the Mark Thompson Show.
I blame you, Albert. How could this happen? I mean,
whoever is producing this thing has
The Mark
no
Thompson
idea what
Show.
they're doing.
all right. Now can we?
The Mark Thompson Show.
All
Mark
right,
Thompson
everyone.
Show.
This is just, I don't know. Let's maintain some order here, please. It's a pleasure to have you all with us. Smash the like button, although I don't know why you would in this particular moment, except for the fact that you do have here on 420, we have a special Get Mark merch offer going down on the website at getmarkmerch.com. You get all the magnificence of these items and more. It's the Where My Weed Smokers At merch discount. Enjoy $4.20 off each stash item. The Where My Weed Smokers At mug.
Where my weed smokers at?
The pot holder and the cross body bag, which does have a legit super stash pocket. What am I trying to say? Like a secret pocket, secret compartment might be what I'd call it. Anything to add, Albert? Otherwise, I'm bringing Jeff on.
The sale ends on April 23rd, so you still have some time to do it. So get your pot holder, get your other pot holder, and get your other pot holder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the weed pouch. Yeah.
Yeah, good time.
Stay at home and get baked.
Yeah, stay at home and order it when use the 420 discount. All right, how about some...
The Mark Thompson Show.
Put it together for this guy who comes in on Thursdays, Jefferson Graham, the longtime writer on technology for USA Today, left USA Today, doing his own thing now, which is all about photo walks, photography, but still a lot of tech information on his Substack, which hits my inbox automatically. I recommend it. You should subscribe. The big news, Jefferson Graham, that seems to get bigger and bigger every week is AI and the power of AI over us. And so, there was an I thought it was sort of alarming 60 Minutes piece that ran on Sunday where they sort of spoke to the power of and learning ability, this machine learning that goes on. I wonder if you could just give us a sense of, your sense particularly, of all of that and where that technology stands.
Okay, well, I just want to remind everybody that I believe it was last November I said to you on one of these Thursday outings, this is the story of the year. This is the biggest thing that's happened to us since the iPhone launch, right? Remember?
Yeah. No, I think you were right to cast it that way, maybe even as something bigger than that. Yeah. I mean, it'll at least hit those marks in bigness. It might be even a bigger technology. That's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, how do you think it will be integrated into our lives?
In so many different ways, whether that's self cars that drive themselves and buses that drive themselves and resumes that write themselves and blog posts that write themselves. And I don't know about YouTube programs that don't need a host. I think us humans will still provide a lot. I did the old search this morning for Mark Thompson and my name. You're okay. You're not frozen now, but they didn't get you right. They had you being former guy at Fox who hosted a show on KLOS for 30 years. Right? Yeah.
Well, to be fair, Mark Thompson, the name is common, and once you say radio and television, the other guy did radio and television too, and there are even more Mark Thompsons than that. The guy, the editor-in-chief of the New York Times and BBC, et cetera. So I give him a little wiggle room on that, but I consider that Google searchy type stuff. What I'm more concerned about and wondering about is the way, as you sort of suggested, these technologies write resumes, deal with you in customer service. I had a literal conversation with someone in customer service yesterday, at which time, because she seemed a little slow in getting what my problem was, and I thought I was explaining it pretty easily and in a straightforward way, I literally asked her, "What? Are you a bot or are you?" I said, with all respect, I just want to make sure, are you a bot or am I talking to a human being? And she said, "Oh, no, I'm a human being." So
that's good.
But my point is, these are questions that all of a sudden have become reasonable to ask.
Okay, well, my experience every time I go to customer service is that they try to put the bot on you and you get absolutely nowhere. Despite the advances, and we're talking about how cool AI is, the bots are still way behind in customer service. You get absolutely nowhere, and you just have to keep saying customer representative, human being, until you can get somewhere. And it's pretty rough. I I don't know if you can figure it out, but I'm in a hotel room this week. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and I flew Spirit Airlines here for the first time. I don't know if you've ever had that luxury, Mark.
What?
Was it?
Anyway,
how much was it? $18?
No,
was it $18?
It was the fare wasn't that bad at the base rate, and then they keep adding things. If you want to take a backpack, it's $60. If you want to bring a bigger bag, it's $80, and it goes on and on and on. But it was still a mess at the airport, total mess, and they're relying on AI and things like that to deal with baggage, and they just are way behind. So we still need humans there. Now,
I ever tell you? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to say that the piece you saw on 60 Minutes was a puff piece about Google. Google is behind in AI. You would never get that impression from watching that story. Microsoft and a company called OpenAI, they're the ones who are far ahead of Google. Google is having a really hard time catching up, and they're watching their market share. There was a story that Samsung is considering dropping Google as the search engine on Android phones.
What?
And using Microsoft instead. So it was pretty puffy, I think.
Wow, that's great. I didn't realize that. Yeah, they really came out as fairly stout. And they also came out as hugely responsible for sort of hand-wringing over the future of AI. You know, we had this sense that, man, they really get the philosophical implications for humanity. Do you have some of that piece, Albert? Weren't we going to run some of it?
Yeah, I had some of the concerns about it, so we could.
Here's a little bit from the 60 Minutes piece.
Sundar, I wonder what keeps you up at night.
So Sundar is the
issue of AI.
CEO of Google, obviously.
The urgency to work and deploy it in a beneficial way. But at the same time, it can be very harmful if deployed wrongly. And we don't have all the answers there yet, and the technology is moving fast. So does that keep me up at night? Absolutely.
Can you keep up with that speed of innovation and make sure it remains on, if you will, a human scale?
I think one of the things we need to be careful when it comes to AI is avoid what I would call race conditions, where people working on it across companies, et cetera, so get caught up in who's first that we lose, the potential pitfalls and downsides to it.
You are going slowly.
Jefferson would say, of course he's going to say that because he's not first.
OpenAI and Microsoft acted irresponsibly.
OpenAI speak about this, and I think there are many views. I think one of the points they've made is, you don't want to put a technology out like this when it's very, very powerful because it gives society no time to adapt. I think that's a reasonable perspective. I think there are responsible people there trying to figure out how to approach this technology, and so are we.
Google's motto at its inception was "Don't be evil," but Sundar Pichai has modified that a little bit. What would you say that Google's values are?
It's rooted in our mission. It is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Our founders captured it well with "Don't be evil." We really want to be as helpful as possible to as many users everywhere, with the goal of improving their knowledge, success, health, and happiness. So that's how I think about our company.
Don't be evil is still a driving.
Yeah.
Let's ask the hundreds of employees at Google who just got laid off in an email if they think that Google is evil. I bet they would say yes.
The layoffs that have hit Silicon Valley, Google, Meta, and beyond, I mean, it's been a pretty big bloodbath. They have been sort of handled in an email way. Is that the way these tech companies they seem to do business that way, even when it comes to personnel?
Google did an email. Twitter did. You couldn't log on and get into your corporate email, and that's how they found out they were fired.
I mean, it seems as though these companies that sort of profess to be in the category of aware, you know what I mean? They are cutting edge, both in terms of technology. They're the young bucks, a lot of the kind of the young Turks type thing. They come on, they're the rebels. They seem to be, almost regressive in the way they view people.
It's worse than changing a format of a radio station and just announcing something at 10:10 in the morning, right?
Yeah, we've had our experience as well. Yeah, I suppose it is. I don't know. That's an interesting comparison, but
I think refreshing your email every 5 minutes to see if you've been fired or not is pretty awful.
Right. There is a lot of humanity lost in technology, and so instead of, we want technology to serve us, we want technology to enhance the work experience. It seems as though there's a lot of cruelty associated with technology, and I feel as though that trend only seems to continue. When I speak to you about these various things, I even become more dejected about it. I just think that the way it's helping us is not helping us.
Well, if I want to let you go, it's a lot easier not to look you in the eye and not have to speak to you. And
Sure.
That's what you're doing, right? And then CEOs say, hey, this person should be fired. Hey, you go fire him, right? Or her.
Right, exactly.
And Murdoch divorce was by email. I think he broke off the engagement by email, right?
Yeah, no, he broke off the engagement and literally broke up with her via email. He said,
"There's never been anything like this."
I'll have my lawyers contact your lawyers. So let me say, if I could do that, I would probably do it. I mean, not now, but I'm saying through life. It's so hard to look somebody in the eye and, say, hey, this relationship is just probably.
Yeah, I think there've been a lot of breakups, but via email and text, right?
Yeah, now I think it's a bigger thing.
But then you have to wonder if they got it. Did it go through?
I mean, at this point, can't we just go on ChatGPT and have them
write
something real nice to say?
Yeah. Let me remind
write a breakup letter for me.
Yeah, that you go to ChatGPT by going to openai.com or by going to the new Bing, and there's a little chat bot in there, and you click the button, and it's pretty good. And Google Bard is invite only, but Bing is now open to the general public.
I got the invite to Google Bard. Thank you. I think I did, but I'm not trying it with any. Thank you. I'm so proud. The ways in which I can road test it, I don't know really what they are. Like, give me a couple of ways that I could road test how good Google Bard is.
Tell me about the radio broadcaster Mark Thompson. Usually start there. Most people would start with themselves and see.
Yeah, but isn't that just that's like a Google thing? You can just pick that up. But you're saying, but that's the idea. It Google's the universe about you, data about you and your show, and then it spits it out. Is that what you mean?
I'd like to go to Paris in June. I'd like you to find me 5 affordable hotels.
Right.
What's Cologne like in the spring? When's the best time to visit? Stuff like that you don't get in a Google search. You get more.
You did that. I remember in a Substack. I think it was. Didn't I read it in your Substack? Yeah, it was really cool actually. So anyway, that's one reason you should check out Jefferson's Substack. Now he's live from Columbus, Ohio, and you're going to be live from there. You do a live thing each Thursday. Now you're frozen, so hopefully you get that worked out by the time you have your live event. Jefferson Graham needs that Wi-Fi upgraded.
Yeah, we need to do like the best hotel Wi-Fis in the United States here, because
you can take that particular hotel Wi-Fi off that list, Jefferson Graham.
If
but
he joins back, we could button out the segment. If not, we could just
how would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
We could try ignoring it, sir.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we can ignore it. We kind of drew attention to it. But how about it for Jefferson Graham, everybody? Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We should just leave the frozen image of Jefferson Graham up there the whole time. That would have been fun. But, yeah.
Jefferson,
anyway.
blink twice if you're in any danger right now.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Smash it with your iron rod. The thumbs up button. New technology can really be a little bit of an issue sometimes. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is everybody goes, oh my God, AI, it's going to change our lives. I mean, it's going to take in a whole university full of legal texts when offering a legal opinion. No human could do that. It's going to take in a whole medical university's text and data when it puts together its opinions as to a diagnosis medically, right? It's going to do all of these things. And then when you get to it, you end up with the challenges that we were talking about. I was there at the beginning of a hotel in Las Vegas called the Aria Hotel. I was there the first 2 weekends, and it was being hailed as a technological miracle. In addition to being such a great hotel, apparently the technology in the room and the ways in which you would interact with that technology throughout the hotel, whatever you needed, that was just cutting-edge technology. So I go for this opening weekend. It is a Friday evening in Las Vegas at this new Aria Hotel. They just cut the ribbon, and it's open. And it was a disaster. The backup of lines of people checking in, hour and a half. Finally, when I got my room key, I went to the room, and they had this new kind of key system. It was all very techy. And it is sexy, you know, all the technology I opened the door to my room. And this was the first thing that was kind of weird. I saw a bag there, like right by the front door. And I thought, this is a little bit odd. And, you know, it's all happening in a nanosecond. You open the door, and I look beyond, and there is a guy on the bed lying naked. I'm thinking, I didn't order like the fruit bowl and a naked guy for my entrance in the hotel on my first night. So I'm guessing something is right.
Are you sure you didn't call ahead and request, a little something extra?
Thanks for the thought is what I'm thinking. But, you know, you just don't know me very well. It's just not scratching my itch.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
So, yeah, it's just early in the day for me, okay? So I go back down, and again, it's insane. I mean, it's, you know, hour and a half wait just to get to this new technology that's supposed to make, you know, your experience so great. And I go back, and I have to get a hold of a clerk and say, hey, you know, there's a naked guy in my room.
I don't think this is the room you meant to give me.
Yes.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
I should have smashed it.
Oh, my.
Hey, dude. You know, but all I would say is sometimes technology that is much anticipated and
I'm
is supposed
excited
to
for all
change
the
your life.
technology, minus the robots. No robots. Everything else sounds really cool to me. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's clearly something we're going to be talking a lot about in the weeks to come. All right, smash the like button like a boss. In the next hour, the great legal ninja David Katz joins us. Many things before the Supreme Court. We'll also, again, get his analysis of the Dominion lawsuit and the other lawsuits that are in the offing for Fox. And Belinda Waymouth with It's the Planet Stupid. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. A decision on access to an abortion pill will now come tomorrow from the Supreme Court. At least that's what's expected. Yesterday, the High Court extended access to mifepristone after it put a Texas federal judge's ruling on hold that would stop production and distribution of this pill. The court's stay indicates it needs more time to study this case and decide the next steps as well. There is a manhunt on in North Carolina as authorities look for a man suspected of shooting 3 people after a basketball rolled right into his yard. Yes. The witnesses there say the shooting began when a basketball rolled into Robert Singletary's yard while children were playing in the street. The 24-year-old now facing 4 counts of attempted murder and now is the subject of a statewide search. There are more people filing for unemployment jobless claims in the U.S., jumping up 5,000 from the previous week. Experts say the rise in jobless claims indicates the strong labor market starting to cool off. At least 2 people are dead after a tornado touched down near Oklahoma City. More deaths are possible as search and rescue efforts continue in the town of Cole. It was hit by the tornado yesterday. Body of one person killed in the lower Manhattan parking garage collapse now been removed from the site. Willis Moore was the manager of the garage on Ann Street. It's believed the 59-year-old man was in an office on the second floor when concrete came down from above in the 4-story garage on Tuesday. Here in California, it's a reversal on his stance. Governor Gavin Newsom now moving forward with plans to invest more funding to create desalination plants in California. His administration, along with the Department of Water Resources, will start allocating $5 million each to programs in Los Angeles, Fresno, and Mendocino counties. This is to create more water in times of drought. In past years, the state has rejected plans to create desalination plants, but the water situation in California apparently grown dire because of the mega drought in recent years. And once the supply from this year's atmospheric river series runs out, they think the state will need more water sources. Also in California, a California Supreme Court this morning rejecting a challenge to Governor Gavin Newsom's controversial Care Court plan. It aims to address mental illness by forcing some into court-ordered treatment. In a one-sentence order, the court says it will not hear the case with any additional comment. The Newsom administration asked the court for an order claiming the advocacy groups have no basis for action against Care Court, but no such order was issued, leaving the groups free to try again in the lower court. Now, Care Court is scheduled to take effect in October in 7 California counties.
It seemed like such a good idea. And so you're saying that the legal door is open still to challenge it, but now it will go off as scheduled. Okay.
Well, we'll see. Unless unless
one of the challenges is successful.
Right.
Okay.
Right. The law, you can assume the lawsuits are going to, be hot and heavy before the opening of it. The rest of the state will follow in December of 2024. So they're going to start Care Court in 7 counties, and then it's going to move to the whole state is what the plan is. But these advocates who, as you say, Mark, will likely file lawsuits against this new law say Care Court does nothing to increase access to mental health care or to address homelessness, but only robs unhoused Californians of their liberties. So we'll see how this all works out. Yeah. Beer giant Anheuser-Busch getting threats following backlash over a Bud Light partnership with a transgender social media star named Dylan Mulvaney. The company told CNN it worked with local law enforcement to keep its facilities secure. The Los Angeles Police Department also said it responded to a bomb threat at an Anheuser-Busch brewery in the area last week. The company has been hit with major backlash over the campaign with Mulvaney, including from celebrities like Kid Rock and Travis Tritt. And Alec Baldwin's Western film Rust resumes filming today in Montana. The production of the movie was moved to Montana's Yellowstone Film Ranch after a cinematographer was accidentally killed by a prop gun while filming in New Mexico in 2021. And of course, New Mexico authorities have charged Baldwin with involuntary manslaughter for that shooting, and they picked up and moved the movie to Montana.
Yeah, and that's film. When they complete it, of course, there'll be all kinds of the curiosity that accompanies, an accident on the side of the road. Everybody's going to try to, right? I mean, I think
this is the scene where she would have been shot. Oh, this is
I just think there's so much curiosity around this thing. It's no wonder they're finishing it. Yeah.
And lastly, the saga of the toilets in San Francisco. Supervisors in San Francisco are accepting $1.7 million in state money. It was intended to pay for one public toilet, but after much scrutiny and criticism, it will now pay for 2 toilets. So, still pricey potty, but that's all right. A small single-stall toilet planned for the Noe Valley Town Square project. Sure. It was projected to cost $1.7 million. A donated toilet reduced the cost of the Noe Valley restroom. The city says toilet number 2, planned for Presida Park in Bernal Heights, could still cost $1.4 million, wiping away the rest of the state grant.
Wiping away. I get it.
Yeah. Governor Gavin Newsom mirroring the outrage, telling the Chronicle He's placing the state funds on hold until the city proves it can build a toilet without flushing so much money down the drain.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
Man.
I think the harp music with the flushing down the toilet was pretty nice, actually.
Yeah, well, I liked it too. I don't know why it was what was stopped, but I think because it's Michael Snyder's the only one that gets the harp.
Special, very special.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
Not just
now.
for any potty. The
Right.
Mark Thompson Show is crowdfunded. Thank you so much, you guys, for being part of this wonderful community that we have in the chat and hanging out with us every day. If you'd like to support the show financially, please consider becoming a Patreon member or supporting us via PayPal. And you can find those links, and I stand by it, so much more, at themarkthompsonshow.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Isn't anybody but a weed?
We have processes and protocols and standards.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
Let me kick down the door and talk to my cheap sons and daughters.
It's a great pleasure to have this guy in the mix. I'm talking about someone who I call him the legal ninja. So we'll get to him in a moment. Yeah. Albert, what are you doing, Albert? What are you doing with the pictures, Albert? What are you doing? What are you doing? It's never easy in this business. I have to say that. I mean,
I've told you it's never easy being in this business.
It was Chris Cuomo who told me that first. Never easy. But then he said thank you.
First, thank you.
Yes. And first he said thank you. Then he said it's never
I've
easy.
told you it's never easy being in this business.
Yeah, that was the order. But
And then maybe he gave you a little extra hug?
well, that's his brother who's the hugger. Chris is the broadcaster.
I do hug and kiss people casually.
Gotta say, that's the way to do it. You should do it casually if you're going to hug and kiss people. But,
It's not about how you feel.
It's not. It's really not. Look, I've got my guy. I'm going to see Clarence Thomas later at the Walmart parking lot.
I prefer the Walmart parking lots.
Yeah, he likes
Is that
the Walmart
where you get your
parking
weed?
lot.
You guys smoke it together in the Walmart parking lot?
Look, let's not impugn a justice here. You know, he's a Supreme Court justice. He's from regular stock.
I've come from regular stock.
Yeah.
Sorry, the integrity is so high there that,
Yeah. So the Walmart parking lot is just where we're likely to see each other and wave casually.
Yeah.
But that's it. Give me the latest on David Katz, please, if you would, Albert. Are you on the phone with him now? Is there?
I am on the phone with him. He just stepped away for a quick moment, and he'll be here right when he's ready.
All right. Thank you. That's Albert.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah. If you would like to support us, you should smash the like button. It costs you nothing, and I guess that matters in the algorithms of YouTube.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Thanks to Wes, super sticker, regular viewer, regular contributor. Appreciate that. Shut up.
Big shout out.
And Scott, I have to put my credibility glasses on for a moment, please, Scott, so I can see the Scott Rittenberg. Hello. Yeah, A's fan since 76. It really does. Yeah, he's basically saying rest in peace, A's, right? Is that right, Albert? Scott's over them. Based on that message.
He's sad, and he's also celebrating 420.
I know. Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of sentiment.
I do have a picture of what the Coliseum used to look like with the hills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you guys sad?
That's always, change is sometimes hard, you know. Albert, are you sad? You're an East Bayer.
Yeah, it's an easy BART ride from me from Union City. I go to a
Yeah.
lot of A's games. Huge Giants fan, but it's my dad's an A's fan, so I take him to a lot of A's games. So we've have a lot of memories at the Coliseum. And Katz is ready, by the way.
All right, super sticker from Ann, though. I want to give her a big shout
shout
out. Thank you, Ann. Appreciate that for $20 into our virtual tip jar here on YouTube. If you're watching in replay, you can hit the. Actually, several people have done it. I'll give them shouts in the next half hour. You can hit that heart that has a $sign in it if you're watching in replay and leave us something that way. It's just a great way to support us on an ongoing basis. Appreciate whatever you leave. Sadly, we're crowdfunded, so we kind of have to remind you of that repeatedly. But really appreciate you in the mix. Thank you, Ann. And now I call him the legal ninja because he is just that. Former federal prosecutor. Yeah. Now he's just working for the defense. David Katz, everyone. David, great to have you here, sir. I'm well, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to these conversations, and frankly, the law is so much the center of issues in America. We're waiting now, just to confront the Supreme Court docket first, we're waiting now for the case involving the abortion pill. I wonder if it was delayed. The judgment was to have been I think handed down yesterday, and they said that we want till the end of the week. Does that delay indicate anything? I mean, can you read tea leaves from anything you've seen out of the court on this?
Well, Mark, Kim, it's great to be with you guys. I think that they are not going to support the injunction that was ordered by the Amarillo, Texas judge, the one that they cherry-picked and steered the case to. And I don't think they're going to go with the Fifth Circuit decision either, because I think that there are at least 5 votes on the Supreme Court to not do that. I see Chief Justice Roberts and Kavanaugh going with what you might call here the pharmaceutical industry. One of your listeners wrote last week to me and said, let's see if they'll go with their big pharma impulses or go with their theological, theocratic impulses. And there are 5 of them, if you want to see it that way, who are going to go with big pharma, because this really is a huge issue. I mean, right now, the Fifth Circuit decision, Mark, would leave a decision by, a bunch of judges who don't know, they don't know the law. They know the law, but they don't know the testing. They don't know the kinds of things that you really need to know to make an informed decision. I mean, I know that they can learn, they can get up to speed, but the reality is the FDA has a review process, and these huge pharmaceutical, these products rely on that, and these billion-dollar industries rely on that. And the idea that they can be just sort of, jostled and messed around with by a nationwide injunction. So the nationwide injunction, I think, will be very hard for the 5 of them, at least 5 of them, to support. The 3 moderate to liberals, I'm assuming, think this whole thing is a horror show, and that it shouldn't apply to either the medical abortion and it shouldn't apply to any pharmaceuticals. But if the FDA decides, what's happened was, let me just explain this really briefly. There's a 23-year-old acceptance of this drug. It's the main drug by which women get abortions. It's the main way that women get abortions. It's 53% of the abortions are used with this method, along with another pill, which for the moment is not under attack. It will be, especially if this goes the way it looks like it might be going in front of the Amarillo judge. But there's a so that is not, the Fifth Circuit said, look, you can't go back and monkey around with a 23-year-old decision basically approving this drug. So the 3 judges on the Fifth Circuit, very conservative, overruled what the trial judge, the judge that the Christian rights advocate who ended up on the federal bench and who was steered this case, they overruled him. But what still stands is that it's 7 weeks and not 10 weeks. A lot of women don't know that they're pregnant until 4 or 5 weeks. So the idea you have to run to and do something about it within 7 weeks, it just, where's the medical evidence? Where is the logic of the U.S. Supreme Court going with the 7 weeks rather than leaving the 10 weeks in place until the very end of the decision of the case? And the other one is that you have to go to a doctor and you can't use the U.S. mails, Mark. And that's one that the blue states can kind of get around when it comes to the mails. they can stockpile this drug so you can get it on just about any street corner without having to use the mails in the blue states. But you would still have to go see a doctor in order to get a prescription. And it's a very routine, safe drug that people don't really go to doctors to get. We don't go to doctors to get a prescription for a lot of penicillin. We don't go to doctors to get a prescription for the COVID drugs. So I think all of that will be too much for the U.S. Supreme Court. And my take on it is that Alito didn't have the votes. If he had the votes, 5 votes, he would have kept the injunction in effect. He would have changed the status quo. He didn't have the 5 votes. My take on it is he's trying to get the 5th vote. He's trying to get Kavanaugh or somebody to go with him. That won't happen. So I think on Friday, what they'll do is they'll send the whole case back to the trial judge in Amarillo. Now, that's not such a happy outcome because he plans to make more rulings like this and to give Planned Parenthood and the FDA as much of a hard time as he can. But when he does that, it'll be the same thing all over again. It'll go to the 5th Circuit and maybe it'll go to the Supreme Court. So that's what I think is the future of this case. But, you know, they say it's very hard to make predictions, especially about the future.
Yeah, well, your predictions and handicaps have been fairly strong. I mean, I'll give you one. We haven't gotten to I'll get to the Dominion thing, but you predicted that they would settle, even if it went all the way to the last second. You said, no, they're going to settle this. And you were right. So we'll get to that. So I think your predictions are worth something. I thought it was interesting that in your remarks just now that you noted something that I was talking about in the first hour. In conversations about the court, I think you can never really lose track of the fact that they have ultimate fealty, I think, to corporate and business interests. And the religious exemption case that's before the Supreme Court now about the, not making someone who's a devout Christian work on Sunday, they're only in arguments, but even that Amy Coney Barrett, who's a devout Roman Catholic, she was asking whether or not it doesn't, this is along with Kavanaugh, asking, put an undue burden on the business to accommodate a lot of these religious demands, like I don't work on Sundays. So to hear that from somebody who herself professes to be a devout Christian, I thought it spoke, again, to the true loyalties, which are to business interests.
Well, you may have something there. Do you want to talk about Dominion, or should we stay on?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, that was just I was just trying to impress you with my granular knowledge of an Amy Coney Barrett argument. Let's go to Dominion then. All right. So now to Dominion. You predicted they'd settle, and they got a huge number, did they not?
Well, that is the way of civil cases, that they tend to settle, and there was so much at stake for both parties. I think the people who say that Fox didn't make an apology, they made 787 million apologies, and they made the apologies in a way that really hit home for a commercial corporation. I mean, Murdoch and his family figured out a great way to make money. That's, spewing right-wing propaganda and, what they do on Fox News. But the idea is to make money. And they had maybe $4 billion on hand, they said, during the discovery process. They probably had more, but let's assume that that's right. Paying, 20% of all the cash that you have on hand when you're Fox, their TV, has, the big NFL games. They have all kinds of other sports things. They have a entertainment division. They have interests over in Europe, around the world. For that corporation to pay 20% of the cash it had on hand because of, this huge, really, I mean, it's not really a blunder. I was going to say blunder, but that's not the right word. This was an intentional hit on Dominion. This was an intentional effort to keep Trump in the presidency when he lost the election. Let's see it for what it was. But while they were doing that, they really defamed this corporation. They picked on somebody their own size for once, Fox News. They had the money to fight back, hire great lawyers. And just quickly, people have asked me, well, why didn't Fox News settle earlier before they were so embarrassed? And of course, the reason was they thought they could cut off Dominion, a voting machines corporation, at the pass. They thought they could win the motions in front of that judge and preclude some of the discovery that Dominion was asking for. But when they couldn't, and they were now taking depositions under oath of the star presenters, Hannity and Carlson at Fox, and they were taking the top executives like Murdoch and other people. They said, you know what, this is just not playing out well for us. We are going to be even more embarrassed. And yes, the fact that they didn't have to read an apology on Fox News, even that, they would have read the apology if that had been forced to be part of it. And then they would have spun it all later on and stuff like that. They would have somehow made themselves the victims, big media and the establishment somehow had screwed them. And the last thing go ahead.
No, I was going to say that. I think there's something to that. And the other thing I would say this, David, I guess I'm asking, but from my understanding, is that, hey, in a civil case, it's pretty unusual for you to have to read some statement or whatever. I mean, it's really the civil cures are about money, which is why the size of the judgment is so very important. I mean, it does underscore what you're talking about, that there was real intent there to defame someone, when I say someone, this Dominion.
Well, there may be, Mark, there may be some settlements we haven't heard about, right? But from what we've heard in the media and what we know about as the public, this seems to be the largest defamation verdict awarded and collected, because they're going to actually get this money. Fox News is not going to go bankrupt. They're not going to play games. That Alex Jones guy who looks like the money's going here, there, and everywhere offshore. Fox isn't going to do that. Someone's going to actually collect $800 million. And that really does speak for itself. I mean, this is a huge disaster for Fox, for anybody who's looking at who's not their base. And it's a huge win for Dominion, because remember, Dominion had a business reputation. They have to go around to states and get states to agree to use their voting machine, and other nations, but especially states. If you have half the states that are red and they're not going to buy Dominion's voting machines because they think, they don't count the votes properly, that was a huge hit to Dominion. Dominion is now totally past that. If you're on the Oklahoma board that decides what voting machine to use, the fact that you're a red state doesn't mean that you can turn Dominion down. Dominion has a great machine, and if you win the election, it's going to count the vote properly. And that's what you're stuck with if you're an Oklahoma official, you're a Mississippi official, no matter how red you are. This base that is sort of mesmerized by Fox News and can't get past whatever they broadcast, that base, with all due respect, doesn't have much economic force. It really doesn't. It's kind of a declining part of the population. It's the people with the grievances. It's the people who aren't doing well economically. It's not the people who are deciding what voting machines to use in the state. So Dominion got what it really needed, and it didn't need an apology. And the last thing is that people who say the judge should have forced that down their throats as part of the settlement, would you, if you were the judge on that case and the parties both agreed on $800 million and there was going to be no doubt, no appeal, no trial, you were going to what? You're going to call the jury in there and make there be a trial?
Yeah.
You wouldn't.
This is exactly what I said to John Rothman yesterday. That the judges incentivized, always incentivized in these civil cases to, look, you've got a settlement. Don't mess with it. It's done. Next case. And it was a huge bit of news and a huge settlement indeed. That's such a great breakdown. And as you say, something that you issue, if you'll pardon the expression in this country, at gunpoint, at legal gunpoint, meaning you have to issue a statement, it can be spun any number of ways. I wanted to, while we're just talking about the high court, and the Clarence Thomas thing is amazing to me. I mean, it's both amazing for the brazenness of this guy. Brazenness is a ding word, I think. But I also am just astounded that, I'm astounded as all Americans are, that, there is no ethical underpinning that will hold him to account.
Well, I think you have to bear in mind, and some of your listeners and viewers are, too young to remember, or they've read about it, but it's hard to get the full perspective of how disgraced, how debased and demeaned Clarence Thomas was. Anita Hill was so believable, and her testimony was so devastating. And I won't go into all the details, but they were salacious, they were awful. They made Thomas really a pariah. And then he had this great line. He said, well, it's like a legal lynching. No, it wasn't. It was a legal finding by sensible people that he was not fit to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. Having said that, just about all the Republicans and some of the Democrats got kind of cowed at this idea that they weren't going to confirm an African American to the court, blah, blah, blah. And so there he was. but he had really no reputation. I went to Berkeley's law school. I don't think he's ever been invited to Berkeley's law school. There would be a walkout to end all walkouts if he went anywhere near Berkeley's law school, Harvard, Columbia, Stanford, you name it. So this person was an utter pariah. The only thing that I would say, satirically, is that if Crow really was his friend, that's because he couldn't find friends anywhere else unless he had power over them, because he was such he wasn't like, let's say, Alito. I don't agree with Alito for many of the reasons I don't agree with Thomas's decisions. But, Alito is a person worthy of respect, greatly respected. He could show up at all those schools and you could have a principled debate with him, with which you might disagree on 80% of the controversial issues. Thomas is not that person. And so Thomas was never, people have talked about Abe Fortas. Abe Fortas was someone who was in the middle of the establishment. He cared very much what people thought about him, and they had a huge, acclaim for him. Just so I am not a contemporary of Abe Fortas, but I know the story about he had to resign from the U.S. Supreme Court, and he probably did, if he did everything they accused him of, what Clarence Thomas does in a day. Taking a $500,000 junket with someone who, in fact, does have business before the Supreme Court, who, in fact, is part of an organization that files amicus briefs with the Supreme Court, that argues for this hands-off of government view that Thomas then votes for. But my point is that Thomas is not hemmed in by any of the restraints that people care about their reputation, because his reputation was so shot to begin with. And when I hear that somebody clerked on the U.S. Supreme Court and they seem like they're kooky, I always see that they clerked for Justice Clarence Thomas. They judged the lawyer who argued for Trump that he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not only not be prosecuted, but not be arrested. But I said, this person clerked on the U.S. Supreme Court, and there you were, Clarence Thomas. It's weird. He's just weird, and only the law will pen him in. He'll never leave. They'll carry him out, but he will not leave voluntarily. If he did, it would be Fortas all over again. Fortas resigned under Nixon.
This is the point I made yesterday. That was a different time when he resigned under an opposing party's executive control of the White House.
And let me say one other thing, which will shock your viewers. Since that time, which was 69, when Nixon first came into office after LBJ, who I think had appointed Fortas. And Fortas was legal establishment in a way that Thomas never was and never will be. We've never had a Democratic U.S. Supreme Court since 1969. My entire, basically, a life. We've never had one. And that's what it entailed. And, if Thomas left, it would be a huge change in the U.S. Supreme Court. Right now, Biden would pick somebody. It would be just like that, but in the reverse. And we're not in those times. We're just not in those times. But having said that, Thomas and the conservatives, they know what the stakes are. And I'm sure they think back on the fact that, wow, after Fortas resigned over a matter of principle, just the appearance of corruption, the Democrats have never had a majority on the U.S. Supreme Court since 1969. Think about that.
Well, they gamed it with under Obama. They didn't give him the choice on Obama. It was.
I come from regular stock.
Yeah, well, Clarence Thomas comes from regular stock. He's just looking for a Walmart parking lot.
I prefer the Walmart parking lots.
Yes, I do want to mention that in addition to the regular stock searches of Walmart parking lots, to what David Katz is saying, if you look at Thomas's judicial activities from the time he became friends with this guy Crow, the billionaire, in the mid-1990s, he had, as David has said, so much control over concerns that Crow had, right? Several groups that were connected to Crow. Tax groups looking to roll back various taxes on the wealthy. The NRA. There was a Club for Growth. This is a group dedicated to various voting restrictions. So there are any number campaign finance reform that was before the court. Giving corporations a voice through money. These are all things that we know how Thomas comes down on them. And as I've said, Crow is the guy who was pulling the strings behind, or certainly had interests at the same time. So,
well, Mark, I haven't seen this anywhere, but think about this. Okay, here is a Texas billionaire, right? Real estate developer. Who do you think he preferred in the election? W or Gore? Who cast the fifth vote that put what's his name, Bush W into the presidency, and not Gore? Come on, he didn't cast a decisive vote that would have been near and dear to that Texas billionaire's heart. This is a farce. I've said it before. This is bribery. If I ever appear in front of Justice Thomas and he says, I'm going to rule against your client because you said that I was someone who took bribes on Mark Thompson's show, I guess I won't take the case if I think that I might lose. I don't want the client to be hurt because I said that about Thomas. But this is too much. Like I said, Alito, even Gorsuch, you won't hear me ever say stuff like that about them. But Thomas is really sui generis. He is an oddball, and he's way over there on the right. And the idea that he's not influenced, to some extent, that's not really solely the issue. Part of it is the appearance, and part of it is that you just should not take gifts like that. And I also don't believe that they're such big friends. They asked this guy Crow in a scarce interview. He doesn't like to really talk to the media, but so hot. They asked him, what is it that you and Thomas have so much in common? You're such friends. You spend this time together. What do you talk about? What do you have in common? He says, well, we're about the same age. I mean, we don't agree on anything, but we're about the same age. So, in other words,
I come from regular stock.
Yeah. Crow does not come from regular stock. Maybe they trade Hitler memorabilia. I don't know what the exact. I mean, the more you find out about Crow, the more embarrassing the whole situation becomes. And as you say, Thomas, to me, openly corrupt. I don't even have to get to the money. The fact that he wouldn't recuse himself from a case involving his wife, that tells you everything you need to know. David, I adore you. Thank you for putting it together. I know sometimes it could be a pain to connect, so I really appreciate visiting with you on Thursdays. In fact, I'll tell you something. It's not done yet. We have a special open and close coming, a special production element that will be introducing you in this segment. And because I think, yes, I like everybody who's a regular to have a production element. So you're going to have your own, and I think we'll have it by next Thursday. So
well, that is absolutely wonderful. When I was on Pat Thurston for 4 years, Kim will tell you, they had the year of the cat, or they had cat scratch fever, or when Pat was really feeling it and she didn't think that I would mind, which I don't, because I could take a joke with the best of them, she used to play, what's up, pussycat? Whoa. Remember, Kim? What's up, pussycat? And then I would say, what's up in the legal news?
That is the great Pat Thurston. We love her. I actually...
that's a good word. Come on, ding me.
Yeah, she wanted to be dinged a lot. What's the other thing she used to? The porn stars.
What are the porn stars doing, Mark?
That's right. And then she had one other, I thought. Didn't we have another Pat?
Brett's pretty hunky.
Oh, yeah. Brett's pretty hunky. And Ralph Nader. Remember, Ralph Nader sent me a book, but what did he...
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one, too?
Yeah, that's it. So that's our Pat. We love her. She's going to be on soon. But you're going to be on next Thursday, and you're so cool to spend time with us. David, thank you. David Katz, everybody.
Wonderful being with you guys.
Bye-bye, David.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I come from regular stock.
I come from regular stock. It's a regular stock kind of show. Look at Kim with the Tenuta Vineyard wine bottles beside her. We'll do Kim's news. Then we've got a look at the planet on 420. Maybe, I think Belinda's going to have some...
Where are my weed smokers at?
News for it's cannabis. I mean, it's a real part. It's a part of this state. It's a part of this world, and it's a part of the environment. So we'll have that as well. Smash the like button like a boss.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right. Can't hear Kim, but she certainly looks great, but don't hear her.
Sorry, I muted myself.
There you go.
I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show, and this report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards. You like that? Can you hear me? There's the picture of Tenuta Vineyards.
Yes.
Yes. On to the news, because we've got some serious business going on in Sudan. About 70 American staffers are sheltering in place at the U.S. Embassy in the capital of Sudan. A conflict between Sudan's military and a rival paramilitary group escalating in the East African nation, the United States preparing to send forces now to assist with a possible evacuation of all Americans there at the embassy. Access to reproductive health services now becoming a factor in choosing a college. As a matter of fact, and I can completely understand why, a new study from Lumina Foundation and Gallup shows 60% of those surveyed said a state's reproductive health laws are at least somewhat important in their choice of a college. Party affiliation was not a factor, as 89% of Democrats and 74% of Republicans shared that view. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says a bill banning transgender women and girls from participating in female sports is about standing up to basic fairness. That's what he says. But House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffrey says the bill's about bullying transgender kids. The bill passed along party lines in the House. It likely will be voted down in the Democratic-controlled Senate. There's a new report recommending that all warehouses be roofed with solar panels, looking a little something like this. It looks like the report from the Environment California Research and Policy Center and the Frontier Group says putting solar panels on all warehouses would benefit businesses, the environment, and electricity customers. The study authors said putting solar panels on all 450,000 warehouses in the United States would provide enough solar energy to power more than 19 million households every single year.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's something, right?
Yeah, it's a lot, and that's a good plan. You just have to put it into,
put it into play.
Effect.
Rapper Fat Joe will meet with lawmakers on Capitol Hill to advocate for fair healthcare prices. Yeah, Fat Joe's going. The Hill reports the New York rapper will meet with lawmakers and the White House officials next week on behalf of Power to the Patients. It's a nonprofit that advocates for healthcare price transparency. He's also scheduled a headliner performance hosted by the nonprofit next Thursday ahead of the White House Correspondents Association dinner. He said millions of Americans have been dragged into debt due to the high cost of health care.
I wonder if he was going to bring, if Fat Joe is going to bring Mo Black's brother, Fat Andy. Right.
I mean, you would think. I think he would be remiss if he didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
I'd go to see that show. Fat Andy probably opens for Fat Joe. I don't see them performing together on stage.
No, probably not.
Can work it
I
out.
don't know if you heard this one. The stars of Apple TV comedy Brother from Another Mother may actually be brothers from the same mother.
What?
Woody Harrelson says there was a hint of innuendo when co-star Matthew McConaughey's mother told him she knew, in quotes, the former Cheers actor's father.
Wow.
Yeah, knew in a biblical sense, I guess. And so Harrelson and McConaughey are considering doing a DNA test. They said they've always felt
that's not
kind of
fake.
Like brothers.
That's real.
That is.
Yeah. I mean, you got to look at them. I guess they have some similar features. I don't know. They could be brothers.
I love it.
Yeah. This report is sponsored by, take the picture down so you can see me, sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards. As you can see, we've got the wine over here, home of the Mark Thompson Why Are You Yelling Red, which is phenomenal. So good. Matter of fact, my neighbor behind me said it's the best red he's ever had in his life. And also home of the Why Are You, this is the Why Are You Yelling, home of the Which One of You is Mark Thompson, Pinot Grigio. So there you go.
He feels like you got to iron this pitch out to me, if I can just say that. I feel like I like the pitch. I just think it needs to be ironed out a little bit.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Whatever, Mark Thompson. This is a picture of the glorious Tenuta Vineyards.
We love Tenuta. We love them.
Did you know, and you can see it on the Mark Thompson wine, but they can do custom labels. So if you've got friends or family maybe celebrating a birthday or an anniversary, bridal shower, maybe you've got a retirement party coming up, a wedding, graduation parties are coming up as well, you can send Tenuta a picture and order a bottle of wine with that picture as the label on the bottle. So that's a pretty cool deal. You can also get 10% off of your order by checking in with Rich at Tenuta Vineyards. All you have to do is say, smash it with your iron rod and call the winery. There's the phone number, 925.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah, so you call them first before you say smash it. If you say smash it and they're not on the line, then you don't get the discount. That's not going to work.
Although it's kind of fun. You could just say smash it and keep smashing it. 925-699-4576 and say the smash it with your iron rod, and you get the 10% off at Tenuta Winery in Livermore. So
all right.
Wonderful. Our thanks to Tenuta Vineyards. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Yes. Well, it is a delight to be with you on 420. I don't want to keep her waiting much longer. I was going to just do a quick acknowledgement of someone who jumped on after hours and left us a little something after hours on YouTube. Keith Johnson. What about it, Keith Johnson?
Right on, Keith.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The thing about we're crowdfunded, so appreciate anything that you throw us during the show, or even if you're watching in replay, there's a little heart with the $sign, and you can leave us something that way as well. On Thursdays, we like to give you some news, some window on what's going on in the environment and on the planet. We do it in a segment we call It's the Planet, Stupid.
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet.
Earth. A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet, stupid.
No. It's the planet, stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet, Stupid, Belinda Waymouth. Hi, Belinda. Happy 420.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. I'm perfectly straight, sober.
You're not celebrating 420.
I'm not buzzing like the kids are.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I was into smoking. I like the edibles. It's tough. Smoking is just harsh on my throat, my lungs. Yeah. But maybe I'm just not doing it right. I think I've pretty well road tested it, though. I think that maybe I'm just going to stick with the edibles and the CBDs and the THC and all that. Do you have news of all of that in your environmental report, Belinda? What you do?
Yes,
okay, great.
I
this
am
is
with
420 News.
Yeah, I'm with Team Marijuana. It is time to legalize pot. And of course, I am saying this for, purely because, this is the job that I do on your show, eco reasons, because look, the federal ban on pot is driving climate change. So this is completely nuts. And let me, and I know there are other reasons for legalizing it, countrywide rather than this, sort of ad hoc, state by state thing that we have right now. But let me explain. So right now we've got 21 states plus Washington, D.C., which also that should become a state, but that's another issue, where adults can buy.
Stay in your lane, Belinda.
I know. I'm really going to try. I'm going to try and stay on the tracks. Where you can use marijuana recreationally. So it's 21 states plus DC. You've got 37 states plus DC where medical programs allow you access. Some of them are very strict, but so here you are with, medical access in over, half the states in the US. Last year, we had Biden ordering a review of marijuana's Schedule 1 drug status, and pardoning people who were convicted of possession under the federal law. So, the winds of change are out there. And let me, bring in the eco news. It's the planet stupid after all. What this federal law is meaning, because, it's this nationwide ban. You can't be shipping marijuana from places like Northern California or Southern Oregon, where it grows outside like a veritable weed, to these other states. And so these other states are forced to grow their own pot, and they have to grow it indoors. And the crazy, there it is. There's an indoor operation, and you can see it's very involved. And just before we move on to all the, how energy intensive it is, asking all these states, to grow their own pot would be like asking every state in America to grow their own oranges and not get them from Florida. It would make way, way, way more sense if we were able to ship the weed that's grown outside to these other states, because pot that's grown inside, and this I was really kind of amazed about. It's more energy intensive than your alcohol, your beer, your wine, your spirits, your coffee, tobacco, cigarettes. It's more energy intensive than all those other stimulants. So when you've got indoor cultivation going, you need 2,000 watts of electricity per square meter for marijuana plants, as opposed to just 50 watts for your indoor lettuce. I mean, that's a huge differential. Yeah. And then it also needs this constant supply of fresh air that has to be at the right temperature, at the right humidity level. Sometimes they're even pumping in excess CO2 because it stimulates the growth of the plants. So it's using too much energy. And how about it, federal government?
And I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that among the things that are used, it's not only energy and some of these other things that you described, but there's a whole illegal water use going on with the illegal grows, that are going on in northern parts of the state. Not too far into the.
That is a point against it. The Northern California crops and Southern Oregon. That is a place that is suffers from water scarcity. So there are all these. It's always the swings and the roundabouts. Yes.
Well, but I guess my point in mentioning it is if it were legal. Nationwide, I think you could keep track of that sort of thing perhaps more easily. I don't know. I feel as though a lot of bad things happen in the dark of illegal. And I think among the things that you're talking about is, jacking water, jacking power, and even toxic dumping, which can be the result of some of these illegal grows as well. So just if you can get it out. The big problem with the legalization, as I understood, we were talking about it the other day, is that the restrictions, regulations, and taxes on legal marijuana are making it harder and harder for it to be viable as a business in California.
Yeah, well, that is the thing, that it's, viewed as this incredible, revenue, tax revenue.
Sure.
So but if it was legalized and we had federal laws that covered it, then hopefully we would have more sustainable tax laws that were covering it.
I agree. I mean, I think you could make that part of it. I completely agree. It should be legalized by now. It's interesting, though, the environmental impact. I love that from your perspective, it should be, leave aside whatever your disposition is toward marijuana. You're talking about this, its environmental footprint alone should dictate that you've got to do something. You just can't leave it the way it is.
Yeah. Well, it's, here's the thing, the news about the environment and where we are at with our emissions is getting so intense. And I think I mentioned this on the show a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about weather, and, we've been in this La Nina for the last 3 years, which has really been masking the warming of the planet. 2016 so far is the hottest year on record. But the last, 3 years, we've had this La Nina in place, and it's really been masking, the fact that we've been heating up. And what's going to happen is at the end of, this summer, towards the end of this year, there's this very, very high chance that we're going into an El Nino, and we're going to be pushed above 1.5 degrees Celsius of heating. And, it is game on. Our CO2 emissions are not going down. And so we really have to be thinking about everything. We have to be thinking about everywhere where we can cut emissions. And so, yes, slightly tongue in cheek on 420 saying, okay, now it's time to do, the marijuana, but, it is time to look at everything. And there, the environmental reasons are one reason to legalize it. And then there are, the other reasons as well, the reasons, that you're talking about. And, anything that's underground and illegal, you're going to have, nefarious, practices with the growing and, the distribution and all those things. I mean, the thing that, really also caught my eye, and I did tweet this story today as well, is this team of Berkeley scientists who've come up with this new way of sequestering carbon by growing crops. And, when I'm reading it, I'm going, okay, yes, this is, it's inventive. It's, it's kind of amazing. Yes, they're thinking outside the box, but I'm like, it is also crazy that scientists are having to put all this energy into coming up with ways to go, okay, how can we, because we're at the point, Mark, where it's not just about being carbon neutral. We need to go into carbon negativity. We need to be taking the carbon that is in the atmosphere. We need to be sucking it out. And there's all this carbon dioxide that is in the ocean. And the ocean is now expelling oxygen and CO2 because hot water is not so soluble to gases. And so all that, help that we've been getting from the ocean with sucking up the excess CO2, that is going to be now going back into the atmosphere. So what these Berkeley scientists came up with, this idea of, okay, we can't just go to carbon neutrality. We really need to go to negativity. They've got this low-cost solution that, they say can scale quickly. And I'm reading it going, yeah, this is amazing. But it also, to me, is bizarre and crazy that we have to do this. So what they're talking about is there's all this land that's not being used to grow crops for food. So if we could grow crops just to sequester the CO2, which they do as they're growing, and then we would harvest those crops and we would put them into bio landfills, which would be, so a bio landfill is a sealed landfill that would be dry because we'd put copious quantities of salt in there to suck up all the humidity. And it would keep those crops dry so that they don't decompose in those landfills for potentially thousands of years. And the reason why we don't want them to decompose is when crops decompose, out comes the CO2. And if they're in an anaerobic situation, which means there isn't oxygen, then as they decompose, the gas that they're emitting is methane, CH4, which is even more powerful a greenhouse gas than CO2. And they're saying, hey, we could do all this. It's a really tidy sort of mathematical equation they've come up with. We could do this by charging a 53 cent surcharge on every gallon of gas sold. That would pay for sequestering these crops underground with their CO2 intact. And yeah, it's super inventive, and it's, one of those things I love, kind of, low tech, high impact. But it was really kind of blowing my mind as I was reading that this is what scientists are having to come up with.
Where are they talking about doing this?
Well, they're talking about using the land. They weren't specific about it, but it was using the land that's not being used for crops. But really what we need on that land is we need biodiversity for all the species that are, incredibly endangered right now because we're taking away their biodiversity. But I suppose it would be, any land that's
arable, I guess. But I mean, it's arable, usable. But
exactly.
I think it's fascinating. I think you're right. The predicament we find ourselves in is indisputable. I mean, we need to roll back a carbon emission. I mean, this and it's coexisting. It's just like the Biden oil thing. Like, you want everybody in electric cars, and you want to have huge government contracts for various government vehicles to be mandated to buying electric cars. But then you open up oil drilling in the Gulf and in some of the most pristine land in the world in Alaska. It's absurd. So I feel like we fight ourselves. So in your case, the example you just gave, this is a brilliant idea, potentially, maybe revolutionary idea, where you have these carbon capturing crops and you come up with this system by the way they're buried, as you described. And at the same time, our footprint as a species continues to grow. We're not really doing the things that need be done aggressively enough, I'd suggest, but that's for another day. But that is a fascinating science, and I wasn't aware of it. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool and it's creative and it is, as I've said before and as we know, this is an all hands on deck situation. We need to be dealing with the excess amount of greenhouse gases that we're putting up into the atmosphere. And they're absolutely right. This is not about going carbon neutral. We now have to go carbon negative because there is too much up there. When we blew past the 400 parts per billion of CO2 in the atmosphere, that was, I think it happened about 10 years ago. And that was such a big deal, because before the Industrial Revolution, we were at 250 parts per billion of carbon dioxide, per billion in the atmosphere. And, it's really excessive. I mean, now we're at, 417 or 420. I mean, I sort of lost count because, the 400 mark blew people's minds. But yes, we have to work out a way to, to suck the CO2 out. And we have to do it very quickly.
I mean, it seems as though, I'm all about just the toxicity. Like, I don't want to get into these things back and forth. Well, the Earth has been trending for a long time, Mark. Just another change. It'll be happening for you. Okay. Then just forget about that, greenhouse gases and all that. Let's get the toxicity out of the environment. And the fact is these, the tonnage of pollutants that are blasted into the air, into the soil, and into the sea, into the water. Yeah. It's mind-boggling. So I love that you come and visit us. And on 420, just saying, I'm not encouraging it, but if that's your deal.
Isn't anybody but a weed?
I'm just saying, if that's your thing, go for it. You can find Belinda on social media. It's up there, at Belinda Waymouth, Waymoth. Thanks, Belinda.
Toby, my pleasure. Great to visit with you. See you guys next week.
All right, next week, Belinda Waymouth, everybody. Yes, I loved it. I loved it.
It's the planet stupid.
No. It's the planet stupid. Next time, only on the Mark Thompson Show.
She's great. I could listen to her just say anything. She's got that lovely accent, Yeah. 420, 365, Belinda. Germany just closed down its last 2 nuke plants. Will the farmer make more from that, or the government subsidies more? Oh, that's interesting too. Well, there's obviously going to be an economic incentive to do that. I'm just looking at catching up with various comments. If you think there's anything I need to comment on, please, Kim, maybe you can put it in there. Otherwise, that's that. Albert, we're wrapping up. It's sad. I feel like as though we did a lot today. I thought Katz was brilliant today. Jefferson Graham was good.
Yeah. Belinda, amazing.
Belinda, always terrific. Mm-hmm. And I got a chance to tell my story about me meeting a naked guy at a hotel in Las Vegas. I mean,
we even had Steve Gregory on earlier in the show too. So we had a pretty jam-packed show.
Oh yeah, Steve Gregory with what's going on in those juvenile halls. It's pretty crazy.
That's kind of eye-opening.
It is eye-opening indeed. Now, is Nikki there today, Kim? Sometimes recently you've been filling in for her, and she hasn't been there.
She will be here, and we'll also have, I believe, this guy right off the top. He's coming in talking about the old 420. You know him. Do you know him? I think you know him.
I don't know who you're talking about. So, oh yeah, he's great.
Yeah,
he is great. 420 started right in San Rafael. 420 started San Rafael. For those who don't know, it's right over the bridge in Marin, and 420 started there. We had the guy, Albert. I don't know if you were with us then. We had the guy who started 420. He was one of the 3 guys or 4 guys, I forget exactly how many. We had him on the show on KGO. Yeah, a lot of fun. Well, now so it's good that you guys are going to respect you're going to respect the weed. Is that what you're going to do?
Yeah.
Albert, tell everybody again, at getmarkmerch.com, we have a special weed package, a 420 package.
Yeah, it'll already be, it's an automatic discount code. So if you go to any of these 3 products, put it in your cart, and you check out, you're going to get $4.20 off until
the
April
23rd. Yeah.
Yep.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Wow.
Any of the, any of those. I have one of the, I have one of the mugs here. This is the, and I believe on the back of it is, where are my weed smokers at? Yeah. Never have,
Where are my weed smokers at?
Yeah, gotta love it. Getmarkmerch.com, that's where that is. Until tomorrow, at which time we'll have Florida and many more things.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
We'll talk debt limit tomorrow and the politics of that with Evelyn Shore. I know we're out of time. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Albert. Thanks, everyone. Till tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you.